Hi guys, I'm Lauren. I'm a content creator, training content creator here at Epic, and I'm here with Richard Hinckley, who's a documentation engineer, and we've been putting together this Match 3 sample game in C++ that we're going to start talking about with you guys today. Um, so as you see here, we've got the game actually up and running, so you can see it's kind of a work in progress, so we're giving you sort of an early sneak peek, but get the game back up here real quick. We've got bombs, we've got tiles you can't swap with, we've got matches, so if you complete a match, things will fall down. And so that's basically a lot of what we're going to start talking about, how we set that up today. So this is all primarily done in C++ with currently a few hooks exposed to blueprints, so we can hand it to artists to say, hey, make a nice effect when you score a combo, like the character jumps up, that kind of thing. Do you want to talk about some of the tile stuff, Richard?
Actually, yeah, one thing I wanted to say about the hooks before we even go further is that that's one of those things that really helps the programmer to avoid being the bottleneck, which is a concern that I think every gameplay programmer has, that basically every time a designer or an artist wants to do something, I'll have to interrupt whatever I'm doing to provide a way for them to do that. The nice thing about blueprints and the fact that we can hook into them pretty much anywhere we want is that we can just say, oh, well, when you get a match, this hook will be called. And you can script or just add a particle effect or a sound effect or whatever it is that you want to do right there very easily and without me coding something custom every time.
Right. And we'll definitely call it the points where we've got hooks and show those in the blueprint side of things too. So we're going to talk about the tiles, which are sort of the base unit here. So when you hit play, these are all individual tile actors.
Yep, 81 of those on the board at any given time. We decided that when we first started laying this out, how we were going to do things was that we were going to have a big grid, and on the grid would be these tiles. And it's basically just sort of division of labor. This isn't necessarily a right or a wrong way to do it, but the way that we chose to do it was that tiles would handle the things like animating and physically moving themselves around on the screen, playing their own particle effects, that sort of thing. And then we push some of the functionality back onto the grid, like knowing why the tiles move, or when a tile gets clicked on, it tells the grid, I've been clicked, so the grid knows what to do with it. In this way, we could have the grid we could have a different grid for a different kind of game, and the grid would be able to interpret the clicks coming in. We also moved a couple things off to the grid, like sound effects, for example. If we have tiles that explode, the tile will play its own visual particle effect for the explosion, but the grid will play the sound effect so that, if you get...
You don't spam all the sound effects right away.
Yeah, if you have 5 tiles, you don't get that weird thing when you play a sound 5 times and it sort of constructively interferes with itself.
Yeah, so the tile knows things like if it's in a normal state, if it's currently falling, if we're about to delete it. It knows the types of moves it can make, whether it's a failure to move, whether it's going to swap, or all the bombs are currently exploding. It knows the move currently happening to it. We've also got some different abilities on our tiles, so whether or not it can explode or whether or not it can swap. So things that can swap are things that either they can't swap if they're just turned off or if they're a bomb. You don't want to be able to move bombs around the board.
Right. Yeah. You can't. And yeah, the non-movable piece that's purposely there to be difficult, and the bomb itself. You could also, if you wanted to expand on this, we set up the structure for tile abilities so that if we want to expand on this later, like maybe we have a bomb that can skip 2 spaces over, like how a knight in chess can make these moves through obstructed space. If you had a tile that could switch multiple spaces or something like that, you could put that in the ability, and it's pretty simple just to keep track of it. And then as we said before, the grid can decide what it wants to do with these abilities.
Right, and this F-tile abilities is then within the grid. So within, if we make the new grid blueprint, you can see our copy here within the level, and it's got a tile library here where you can set the abilities on the tile, so you can check if it explodes or if it can't be swapped, and if it's a bomb, like what the base power would be.
Oh, why don't we show that off for a second? We can we can take the bomb and we can, you know, what's the original power for the bomb?
The original power for the bomb is 0.
It's just
so
0. Okay. So if we run that and we show what a bomb does, hopefully we'll get a bomb in our initial layout.
So play, and if you just hit
Okay.
one bomb, it just detonates itself.
It just
right?
sort of blows itself up, and the explosion effect
Right.
isn't there. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
However, if we
So
set
if we
that
go
to
back and we set the bomb power to default of 3, let's make it pretty awesome right off the bat. And you hit play, then, oh, did that not save? Let's see.
don't think we
Bomb
saved it.
power of 3. Oh, you know what? I think it's
Oh,
because
that's the default one. Is that the one in the map or the default
that's the one in the map, but I think it's because we don't do that combo power anymore.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
We used to have that in. I guess we turned that off last week. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, I'm just on the wrong tile. I can't read.
Are you on the
that's
wrong
all.
tile?
Yeah, that's rearranging on me. That one just can't explode. So
Oh, was that was the block tile?
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll rearrange. We're good. So that's the gem. There we go. Let's try that again.
All right. There
Yeah,
we
and
go.
that takes out a lot more.
Yeah, you saw that
right
was
at the
a much-
first. So
Do that one more time. Let's just see that.
well, that's gonna be crazy because we already had some bomb power
we
charged
already
up.
had some bomb power. Yeah, that was a little more.
So you can basically, because we've exposed it that way to blueprints, the designer can tweak it because rather than us having to go change the property back in code all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another one of those nice features. You know, you just expose it, and then as a programmer, you can just kind of walk away. And as a designer, you have a pretty powerful set of tools right there.
Right, you could all of a sudden make all the tiles explode if you really felt like it.
Yeah, I guess we could.
You just check all the boxes. It wouldn't be quite match 3 anymore. though.
That would be not the same game, but
Yeah. So this is the tile still. So some other things that we've exposed to blueprints are like being able to play in a selection effect. We didn't implement that in code at all. We just call it and say, whenever we want to select a tile, go to the blueprint, look up what's been wired up for the selection effect, and do that.
That's right. Yeah. So the artist can change that to be whatever it wants. And when we were first doing this, we just had something that just brightened it up a little bit. I forget.
Yeah,
Was
just
that
sort of-
done in material setting or?
Yeah, just a dynamic material.
Yeah, so it was just a material setting. It was just just a programmer made thing so we could see what we had clicked on as we're testing it, so we just know what we're doing. But then later you have the artist do something that has a nice glow to it, a nice feel to it, and it could even have. I think we actually do have a little sound effect on it, but I think we have our sound turned off here.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little sound effect when you click it. All those things that make it, really feel nice. It's good just to have an artist to pass things off to.
Please make it prettier.
Yeah, make
And-
this nice.
Yes. We've also got some Blueprint native events. So we do have a default code implementation here for things when they're matched or when they've finished moving. But you can override that in Blueprint. So if you want to do some more visual things there, you can just do something in a Blueprint and then call back to the native implementation. What else do the tiles know? They fall, so we tick their falling. They basically just handle that. The grid tells them when to fall.
Yeah, and there's actually I want to say a little special feature of it, which is that so if you have a set of tiles that you remove, then the tiles above it will sort of fall down into place, and so that works one way. Then we have that use current world location, where instead of falling from where it's supposed to be on the grid, it falls from where it actually is. So this way we can place tiles that are not on the grid yet, that are above the grid, that are going to fall down into the grid, and they don't have valid grid coordinates yet, but they do have a physical, like their transform has a physical place in the world. So we just simply put an argument on that, and then and if we might get into the code for that later, we might not. But
as you can see now, when you spawn in tiles, they'll sort of fall down from above the grid here, and that was just reusing code that we'd already written. We're like, hey, we can reuse the drop-down code. So that's the same as when you make a match.
Yeah, just a tiny modification to that, and then it's reusable. So we want to reuse as much as possible. It's just a general programming practice. All right.
Let's see. Is there anything else specific about the tile? Now let's go look at the grid and talk about some of the stuff we put on the grid versus on the game mode. So let me open up the grid really quick. Okay. So the grid has that structure of tile types, right? So what's the probability a certain tile will spawn? What does that tile look like? And what abilities does it have? So that goes back to look at the tile and ask the tile for its abilities.
Yeah, I think initially we had the game was at first it was too easy. We had so few tiles that almost any match would cause just a cascade of combos. Then we put in the tiles you can't move, and those immediately became a blight because they happened way too often. So we've tweaked the bomb and the block probabilities up and down a good number of times, and I think we added an extra tile type to.
So now we have 4 tile types, and it's pretty easy just to do that. Just add a new part of the array and fill it in.
Yeah, very easy to do this.
But yeah, now the bombs don't spawn super frequently. Same with the sort of block metal tiles that keep you from swapping them. So the grid keeps a track of what all the tiles that are currently on it in this array of game tiles. And we can also set the minimum run length. So currently this is a match 3, but it's actually really, really easy to make it a match 4 because we've coded that as a variable rather than hard coding 3 everywhere. We also made this edit anywhere and blueprint read write on the grid. So,
although a note that I want to make about that as a programmer is at first it was just a match 3 game. The number 3 was in the code in a couple of places.
Yeah.
And that's for me that's a decent way to start. Just hack something until it works, and then go back and abstract it later when you realize you might want to change it. You think ahead a little bit, but we didn't think ahead to every single feature we were going to have right at the start. A lot of them we simply tried to write code as cleanly and reasonably as possible and then came back. So this was a fun thing to add in.
Yeah, and that's similar to like we weren't sure at first if we were going to allow for multiplayer or not, and we ended up right now it's currently has a little bit of support for if we wanted to go back, but
Well, that's another really good thing about this engine in particular. I've seen, I won't say where or what games I'm talking about now, but I've seen projects before where someone didn't add multiplayer and then 6 months before the game shipped decided they wanted it. And that particular game has 2 engines on the disc, but I'm really not going to say what game it is.
But yeah, you
don't want to do that. The nice thing about this engine is that it provides such good support for replication and multiplayer that as long as you give some cursory thought to how this might work if you had more than one player, you're pretty much set.
Right. So I just changed this variable down here, this minimum run length on the grid to be 4 on to the one that's placed in the level, and going to play. And as you see, it's actually, when we start the grid, we don't automatically fill matches for you. If it's going to generate 4 in a row, we're like, no, randomly select a new tile. So the fact that we have 3 here shows that we're actually doing a match 4 game now.
Yeah,
so if I want to try to swap that, and it's not going to go. But if I want to see
the one right above it, I guess.
This one, oh yeah, right there. And then so that's now a match 4 game, and we got a combo, and that was just because of how we set it up. It's now a parameter that we can just dial up and down as we'd like to change the game mode. You know, we could have a match 3, a match 5. As you progress farther through more levels, you could easily just have that be a parameter you push in. So we definitely started with a match 3, and then as we went on, made sure to generalize it. Other things that we have that would make it easy to generate new levels. I mean, right now we have just the one, but we put in some flexibility in terms of grid width or grid height. So you could make, a rectangular grid, a more horizontal grid.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of match 3 games that change the size and shape of your grid as time goes on, and I think changing the shape of the grid is something we plan to do a little bit later. But initially, we wanted to make sure that we would at least have the flexibility not to have one single fixed size grid. And admittedly, as soon as we first changed it, it started crashing a couple times. We had some things to fix, but it's good to check that stuff out ahead of time and make sure it's all working.
Right. Yeah. I think there were a couple assumptions of if they were the same, basically that they were the same.
Yeah, that it was a square instead of a
So other things the grid handles are things like creating the tile, selecting the tile, things that are very specific to the placement or movement of tiles. And I think that's where our main dividing line was between what we put on the grid versus the game mode. Is like the grid knows what kind of game is being played, but it just handles things like tile movement, which is independent of the score, the game rules, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's also a couple of functions, actually a number of functions that deal with, the grid address, so what place the tile has on the grid, and also its physical location, And then also it handles what happens when a tile finishes falling, finishes matching, or finishes swapping. And those tiles report back and say, okay, grid, now that I'm done, what do you do next?
A lot of these would be virtual functions if we wrote a second game type and extended the grid. I think if we did extend the grid, what we'd probably do is take a lot of the functionality out of this grid, move it into a match 3 grid, and then make our second grid and have them both be children of this base A grid class.
Right.
But we haven't needed to do that yet, so it's ready to happen when we need it to.
Mm-hmm. And we respawn tiles. This is where we swap the tiles. And if you see here, we can reposition the tile actors. So when you, for instance, make a move, it will swap them kind of under the hood, check to see if they're right if you leave them there, and then if not, put them back. Whereas if it's a complete move, it will...
I think we're still on match 4.
Yeah,
so
still a match. A little bit trickier. I'll set that back in a second. But you can see that it would sort of swap the positions and then operate based on that.
So when we initially wrote this, when you told 2 tiles to move, it just instantly in one frame just moved them, and that was it. And it switched them, or they disappeared. There were no explosion particle effects or anything, which there are here, although you can't see them. But there were no particle effects. There was nothing was visible. It just happened. Mm-hmm. Later on, when we decided that we wanted to watch them swap and have them move, on curves, right, and have them do the little attempt to move and go back to indicate an illegal move attempt on your part, we then needed to do this to say, okay, at the very end of this, when all the animation is over, are we really switching them or not? And so that's why we ended up adding that little thing. But that's just an example of one of those things that since we put all the swap code in swap tiles in one nice clean place, when we decided we wanted to add a behavior, it was really easy to do.
Right, and it'll either wait for them to swap and then swap back, or it'll just wait for them to go cleanly and then report that it's done. We've also got some handling for, figuring out if a tile will be exploded or not with the bomb, finding the neighbors, so you can't try to swap 2 that are not next to each other. Is it even a valid move to try?
Find neighbors is a pretty core function for match 3. Yeah. As it'll find you runs of tiles that are adjacent to you horizontally or vertically, and optionally, do they have to match the tile that you're talking about in the middle?
Right, because for the bombs, it just will look out in the direction for, let's say, 4, if your bomb power is 4, and then add all those to the will explode group. Another thing that's pretty key to match 3 is if it's unwinnable or not. So, all you have are things that will never possibly match, and there's no bombs left on the board. It needs to check that. I think we don't do it super frequently, so it's not checking all the tiles. Because that is one thing I think that we came across a lot is, yes, we've only got, 80-something tiles, but how do we minimize the number of tiles we're checking against each other? Because that can get big pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think this is another point where you could use the engine well. So the temptation is to put a check to see if the game in its current state can possibly be won on a tick function, but don't. What we do is we check this once per move. We know that the game board is only updated after you've moved or after tiles have just spawned into the map. Those are the only occasions when the answer, is this game unwinnable, could possibly have changed from the last time we asked the question. So a beginning thing that you might try to do is to put it on the tick function and just constantly check it. But when you think of a game running 60 times a second, and you think of how many moves a player makes in a second, it's not Tournament StarCraft, so it doesn't have to be that fast.
Right, so it just checks, after everything is loaded in and spawned and there's no more combos, it goes, okay, can you win? If so, keep going. If not, say, all right, game over, with either win or lost. Some other things here's some more that we exposed to blueprints are the score multiplier for the move. So I think by default we say all moves are 100 points. But if you go into the actual grid blueprint, which I'll do over here, and look for the score multiplier for move right here, we filled in 200 for a combo, 100 for a base swap. Just detonating one bomb doesn't give you any points, but if you manage to get all the bombs because you're all the way charged up, then you're 50. And this is something that can be tweaked a million times easily during gameplay testing.
I don't think we're gonna have to get to that. We're gonna have to explain what all the bombs is at some point in the stream.
Right. I think that's actually coming up very soon, though.
All right.
So close that back So that one. There we go. So we also keep track of, all the tiles that we're currently working with, whether that's, are they falling, are they swapping, are they ones that are about to be destroyed? And yes, the is move legal. That's where we could talk about all the bombs.
There we go.
So there we go. Seriously? Did I skip it?
Must have been the first one.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. I can just.
Yeah. Okay, there we are.
So, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. Actually, could we go back one step to when a tile is selected?
Yes.
I
When
think
a tile
I'd
is
like to start
selected.
there.
Yes.
So while we're looking for that, when a tile is selected, the tile knows that it's been clicked, and we can go into how the input is done. It's actually very simple to hook up, but the tile calls the grid, as we were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The tile tells the grid, "I've been clicked on. Grid, do what you do."
Right.
So we have a couple of things we check right off the bat. First off, that the game is actually still running, that tiles aren't currently being moved around the board. We don't want you clicking on things while stuff's happening. So we make sure that all of that's fine right up top. First thing we just do is we're going to ignore your click if you clicked at a time when you're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. As we come down here, this is where the grid starts determining what it wants to happen when you click a tile. So it'll keep track of a tile that's already selected. If you haven't selected one yet, it'll say, okay, this is the tile you want. If it's a bomb, that sets it off right away. If it's a non-selectable tile, we scroll down to the else case there?
Yes, yeah. There we go.
So if this is the first tile you've selected, at the top of this if block we checked for a tile that was already selected and saw that we didn't have one. So this is the else case for that. If it can explode, it explodes right now. And if you're all charged up, you get the super explosion.
Right. If you're combo power, because you can make combos, we charge up and we set the sort of max combo power. And once you're equal to that, if you click one bomb, it will set off all the bombs.
Yeah, all the bombs all go at max power all at the same time, and you actually get points for it. So there's a big incentive to save your bombs and get get the combo bar full, and then blow them all up.
Right.
Big reward for holding off like that.
But if you're not at max bomb power, then you go down here, and it's just a regular detonation, right?
Just as a regular detonation that takes out a certain number of your neighbors based on how much of the combo bar you did have full, and the base power of the bomb, as we saw earlier. So that's kind of how we do that. Similarly, if you click on a tile that can be swapped, then we'll remember that you clicked on this one. We still need a second tile to swap with, but we need to remember this one for whenever that second click comes in. And otherwise, we just tell you, no, you can't. Like, you clicked on one of the metal blocks that you can't move. And this right here on move made, this doesn't really do anything here, but it's a hook that an artist can make do something. So you can have a little like kind of sound effect, or the tile could shake or put up an X or something like that.
Right. And actually, I'll open up the tile blueprint now so we can see how some of the selection effects. So, over here when it said play the selection effects, it will play a sound. It will drive something on the dynamic material. And so when you select a tile, the code will just say, hey, go to the blueprint and do these things that we've been set up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I think also in here we've got the on swap move, which we'll try to swap them. And, so the movement is all done entirely in the blueprint, but it's just called from code.
Yeah. The animation of the tile sliding around is done in here. And you can see that we tell it whether or not the move is going to succeed at the end. Or it's one of the parameters to the function.
Right.
So it'll know, basically, if the move is going to be successful, it'll do the regular swap animation. But if the move is not going to be successful, it'll do the animation where it goes out to the middle and sort of wiggles and then goes back to its original spot.
Right.
So that way the artist knows what to expect. All right. So back to the unsidetrack, back to the is move legal.
Yes.
So if we already had a tile selected, at the time that we select the current tile, then we'll check to see if the move is legal.
Right. So we send it the 2 tiles that are currently selected.
Right. So we send it those 2 tiles. We do a bunch of checks up front, make sure they're not null or something strange hasn't happened here. We could also use Unreal's check or check slow or possibly ensure or validate. We have a lot of different ways to do this to make sure that these are okay in different builds or different contexts. If you're making a game that was very performance intensive, you wouldn't want to have a lot of null checks for things like these tiles aren't null that never happen. But in your debug builds, you do want that in case something goes wrong. You want to see exactly what happened.
And that's why we have a lot of check slow throughout the code right now, right?
Yeah. So we have a couple of those in there for that kind of. This is not a terribly performance intensive game, but it's just a good habit. So we check through. We check that both of the tiles can swap, and of course they have to be physically neighbors to each other, and they have to be of the same tile type. They have to not be of the same tile
Right, so
type.
you're not swapping 2, yellow
Right.
tiles next to each other. It's like that.
Right. That
gives you
doesn't
nothing.
make sense. That's not really a sensible move.
Yeah.
Originally, we actually didn't check that they were neighbors in the event that they fail. So you could select 2 tiles far apart, and they would do the no, we're not switching animation all across the board. It wasn't really a problem. It didn't cause anything to go wrong with the game, but it really looked weird.
Yeah.
So
now we check both of them.
so now we check that. But that's basically it. I mean, you can see that piece of code's not very big. And we just get an array of tiles that have moved, and that's it. We actually move them under the hood. You don't actually see them move, but
Right.
we reposition them, then check to see if they have any matches, and then whether or not they do, we switch them back before anybody notices what we've done.
Yeah, sort of is the place where they are now better than where they were before you started the move?
Right, because of course in this game you cannot move 2 tiles unless you're actually making a match 3.
Right.
Right. So so that's how we do that. And you can see it's very compact because we have a good amount of code reusability.
Yeah, find the neighbors, add them to this array, and then you swap tiles back and forth just by giving them the correct inputs. So I think that's a lot of what the grid does. I mean, essentially it does just handle placing tiles, moving tiles, and checking to see if moving them is better or not. Whereas the game mode handles more of the what happens when you win. And so we'll go over the game rules really quickly, right? So we've got a timer, we've got sort of a baseline score to beat, and we've also got some medals. And if you beat the score to beat by the time, then you win. That's awesome. But you can also beat the medals, and beating those scores will obviously shift things around so you can get your 3 high scores and keep trying to beat those. Eventually we're going to hook those up as sort of achievement, show off or share with your friend kind of things.
Oh yeah, definitely displacing the gold medal on every level. That's that's a thing you could put up. And I think we'll probably end up putting the hooks in for this to show up on social media and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. Lots of fun things so everybody can be trying to beat the best score of match 3. But so this does have a lot of the handling the timer because that's part of the game rule rather than dealing with the tiles or their placement. We've got things like switching the HUD widgets around. We've got that kind of stuff in here. So if we had more game types or more than one grid per level, then we might have had to be a little bit firmer on what we decided went with the grid versus the game mode. But we're kind of like, if it falls in the middle and it's okay either place, we'll just try it in one. And if it doesn't work there for some reason, we'll try it in the other, right?
Yeah, there's a certain amount and this is the sort of thing that we could change later. We thought about the idea of expanding the game. We didn't need to yet, but we still set up the structure. And if we decide we were wrong and when we go to add our second game type, something's really weird or something is very specific to this one game type and it's awkward to make it work with the second type, we can move things around then because we only have one thing that we need to change. So it's not a big deal. But it is good to have thought about it ahead of time.
Well, like our save game, I think we've tried it in just about every class we have.
We did put it in a couple different places, yeah.
So,
I guess we didn't really talk about the widgets, but our menu screens are basically UMG, and they're really just one big button right now. But we have the system up, and actually the system is pretty much the exact 4 lines of code from the UMG C++ tutorial, where we basically just keep track of what since a UMG widget can have sub widgets, basically our entire menu system or our entire menu screen can be one big widget with lots of little widgets in it. So we can just put up one widget, which is a whole menu screen, and then take it away and put up another one. And it's just nice to have this simple API here that can be called from Blueprint. This is Blueprint callable.
Right.
That just says, what's my main widget on screen, and you can pass in, a null or an empty, a nothing, and just have it get rid of that, which is good for, good for the main game screen where you don't really need any extra buttons right now.
Yeah, if anybody who was helping us with the art pass on this was like, I've discovered that I want to make this whole other menu widget for when you are selecting a new level, you could just swap it in here because we did expose it this way. So
we'd also have the option, of course, we wanted to recode this to have maybe an index, so we could have maybe two things up at the same time, and one could be, your in-app purchases that are just always there on every single screen, and then one could be your current games menu or whatever's relevant. It's pretty easy to redo that kind of stuff.
Let's see, we've got the tile move speed, which I think we originally didn't expose, and then Ian was asking, hey, I want to make the tile slide faster as you go further, so we ended up exposing it. So now this is something that, all we had to do was take the existing setup and add the blueprint or the edit anywhere in the blueprint read write keywords to it, so then he could see it and start manipulating it based on when you get combos or blow up bombs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, should we do that? Should we set it to match 2 and
yeah,
get a ton of combos? Match 2 is a ridiculous iteration of this game, but you can do it.
Yes. So let's do that here. Oh. There we go.
Okay.
Set it to match 2 and
Pretty
play.
much Combo City.
Yes. And oh man, after we sold
How
this.
did we not? I really said we were going to get a lot of combos, and then there we go.
And so they fall a little bit faster every time, and then the bar is going crazy, and
it's not going to end. It's match 2. There's no way.
It's just
this is going to end. Our score is going to sort of
through
burst
the
off
roof.
the
I'm going to
screen.
save this as my high score, by the way. You guys are all going to have to beat this later. Oh, I feel like it did.
I think you might not save this. You might not actually finish the game ever.
It'll save when I close the window, I think, because that's technically the game ending too.
I hope so.
It's just going.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, and as you can see, here's the bomb power combo bar. So we've got a max combo power 4. So as we've gotten all of the combos ever, our bomb power bar has been charging. And so if we were to be able to set off all these bombs, which I don't know.
We won't. I'm sure we won't.
I know.
This is why match 2 is not a game.
Yes. But you could make it if you wanted to with just changing that one variable. All right. That's pretty silly. All right. We're done with that.
All right, let's change that back to 3 before we forget. So this
That's
is still
true. Next time we'll come
playable.
back and match something and all of the things. Okay. So back to the game mode.
All right.
So we've got the game restart, which is just, we've got that big button that shows up at the end. It's either you did good or you didn't meet the score. And if you click that, it will just call this blueprint callable game restart function. Game over is also blueprint callable, but I think right now we just call it in code when the timer is up, right?
Yeah, I don't think that gets called from in the game anywhere. It could,
Right,
but it just doesn't.
It gets called when the time runs out or when the game is unwinnable.
I guess, an example where you might have that is like, like in, I don't know if you call it pool or billiards, but if you scratch, right? If you hit the cue ball into a pocket, game's just over.
Right.
So, I mean, you could have a little like
weird
bad, like
tile.
a skull tile that if you accidentally destroy that with a bomb or match that with another skull tile or something like that, it ends the game. And without touching the code, you should be able to do that just in blueprints.
Right. Yeah, that's all would be totally exposed. Make a new tile type.
I guess you would the only thing you would need is you would need to add a tile ability that says this is a skull tile. That's.
But it's like one line of code. We could change that right now if somebody wanted us to do it. So.
Yeah.
We've also got that game timer, and so we use that to see if the game is active, and also we can use that to pause. So while you're doing the combos of infinite match 2, you're not running out of time. You're just pausing the timer during those events when things are moving.
Yeah, we decided that it would feel kind of weird to watch combos going and then while they're going the game ends or your timer's still running down. Felt it might be frustrating to players that they did a good move and now they have to sit here and just sort of watch the time.
And watch their time go off.
Yeah, watch the time go. So we added that.
We've got some rewards built in, so if you get a score over a certain amount, we'll trigger and give you a time bonus. So again, you're not necessarily limited to your 60 seconds, but that is something we've been tuning a lot of, like, how do you keep it from being, we've now got 10 minutes on the clock, and you don't want to play match 3 for 10 minutes probably.
No, that's a bit long.
So some of the things we exposed, again, to blueprints for the HUD are like getting the remaining time as a string. So if there's something that you want to calculate in code and just expose to your UMG blueprint, that's pretty easy to do.
Another thing we did in there was we went and we made sure that the value was clamped to 0 and all of that. When our match was over, we were getting -1s showing up on the scoreboard. So rather than have an artist who's implementing this have to deal with that, that's one of the advantages of blueprint callable things. The artist says, this is great, but it does this in this one case. And we can just go and change that in code. Don't
and
have
they
to
didn't
go
have
back
to do
and
anything
edit
else in
the
the
art.
blueprint. Yeah. These are some other things that are blueprint implementable. And I don't know that we've got, actually no, this award place, which is basically called, if you take a new place, so first place by beating one of the current scores, but if you read our comment here, if you call it with 0, it's just a regular scoring event. So if you notice, let's close it real quick. So on the game mode, and let's see the events. So award place, if it's not 0, then it'll get the little character that's sitting up there in the corner and play some animations on her. So basically, if you're doing a really good job, she'll start playing animations. And I think there's some other moves, like if you get a combo, she will jump up and down. Or actually, it's because we're beating that bronze score there that she is excited.
We only have the one celebration animation.
Yeah. She's really happy, though. So that's something that's, as you pass that place, it calls the thing that's only set up in blueprints. We didn't even have to wonder what sort of visual effect is going to happen when she wins. We just said we just want it to happen when she passes first or second or third place.
No, yeah, there was no programming involved in this. Basically, the animation and the art asset and all that, they were all done with no additional code.
Mm-hmm. And we just were like, oh, you want to hook right here when this game event happens? Go crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you want to know exactly how it's going to happen as the gameplay programmer, you want to just do it in C++. But if you're like, I just want something visual to happen or some, timeline-based event or something like that where you don't necessarily care about the implementation, that doesn't impact gameplay, then it's a good place to think about exposing stuff to blueprints.
Yeah, you just kind of want the artist to have the ability to be able to do something here. You can enable that just by putting the hook in, and then it's available to them if they want it, or if they don't, they can just not use it.
Right. Yeah, I think, right now I don't think we're using add award bonus hooked up in blueprints at all, but it's there if they want to use it to start, flash the screen or camera shake or something when you get a bonus. They totally have the ability. You can also, we've got some blueprint pure functions, right? So you can just get the combo power or get the max combo power, but it doesn't actually execute. You don't have the ability to go back and set, change that from the blueprint. You can just ask the code what the combo power is right now.
Right, and just something as a note for programmers. This is just like a little subtle point, but blueprint pure functions run every time a node is connected to them. So if you run a regular blueprint function that has the white execute path that goes through it, that'll run once, and then it'll store its results on the output pins, and they'll just sit there and be stored in memory. A pure, every time that pin is referenced, it will rerun the function. So it's important for that reason that your pure functions don't actually change anything. They technically can, but they're really not supposed to. And it's also important that they don't do any long or slow calculations if you're going to connect multiple pins to them, because they will redo those every time. However, for small things like what we have, it's really nice to have a pure function because you don't have to bother to string an execute thread through it. You can just use it like a variable pretty much. You just drop it in and hook it up.
Right,
It's
I think
very convenient.
That's here in our UI, the power bar, which is hooked up to basically those get combo power and get max combo power functions that we were just looking at.
Mhm.
So gets the game mode, does some conversions, and then displays the fill in the bar accordingly.
Yeah, so these are nice in that you don't have to run the execute down through those two and snake it back up to the return node.
Right.
Just treat them like variables. It's convenient.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, back to the... And then finally, we've got the, actually, this is one I just added, again, based on wanting to add a visual effect here, is if the game has been won, they're going to play a different animation on the character versus if you lose. I think we've got a little, like, collapse animation for if you lose. And they're like, oh, can you just make us a hook for that? And it was very easy to just make a blueprint implementable event. Game was won. Then I think over here in the game over code, I just added a call. It's like, all right, now call game was won, and go check in the blueprint to see if anything's going to go on now. So it was very simple to, 3 lines of code, and then they can just go crazy scripting whatever they want. Let's go back to, I think that's almost done with the things in the game mode. So again, here's where we store our widgets for the blueprint, whether you win, whether you lose in the current gameplay, HUD. And then some things that we have protected so that you can't necessarily reach in and change them directly. You just have to go through the game mode. Are the game over timer, the time remaining. So that way you can't say, oh, the player controller is just going to decide that the game has more time on the clock. The game mode handles all changes to the timer. That's something that I think is important to consider of, if it's going to be public, if it's going to be protected, or if it's going to be private. Do you want to have like really strong control just within that class of how to handle it? Do you care if, you make a blueprint based on that, if the blueprint can make some changes? Or is it something like what kind of sprite you use for a tile? And you don't actually really care because it doesn't impact gameplay that much. It's just a visual fun thing, and changing it doesn't change the gameplay.
Yeah, it's also just a good way to to keep bugs out, to have, especially sensitive stuff like timers that might be connected to game events and that kind of thing that you really don't want just any piece of code to mess with. Really helps keep your bug count down to make things protected or private as appropriate. And then other than that, you can, like Lauren was saying, you can make pretty much anything public that isn't going to be a real problem if someone changes it, and it's just easy for people to get values from you.
Or like for this game will be won, I left the variable protected and then just made the function to announce if it's if you won or not. That's public, so that you could actually manipulate if the game is won or lost, but you just can know whether it's won or lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a lot of the things from the game mode. We've also got the player controller, which has a little bit that is very player specific, what things are specific to the person playing the game. And I think a lot of these considerations came when we were deciding if we were going to do like a head-to-head or a co-op or some sort of multiplayer aspects. So what things did you want to control about the player, even if the game mode changed or you had more than one player?
Yeah, so score is probably the most obvious example of this. If you had a head-to-head game, clearly each player has their own score.
Right.
So we thought that would be a pretty straightforward thing to put on here.
Yeah, and add score is one of those other ones where we went in and had the delay after the fact. So it actually runs up the score kind of as you increment it, rather than boom, now you have the new high score. It's a nice visual effect to see the score numbers run up.
Yeah, it's nice to see the score ring up. And also this is an example of where a variable doesn't need to be directly exposed. But instead, the way you interface with the variable is you talk to the class, tell it what you want to do, and then behind the scenes, it can handle the difference between your actual score and the score that's displayed on the screen.
Right. So for this calculate bomb power, this is one where right now I think we've got a 1-to-1 bomb power equals combo power. But if this is a blueprint native event, if you wanted to, in the player controller or even in the game mode, you wanted some sort of game with superpowered bombs or sort of hard to charge bombs either way, you can override that and say, okay, combo power multiplied by 2 is your bomb power. Pretty simply, just based in the blueprint. And then again, here you set your combo power and your max combo power. I think our down the line we want to have like 2 players types you can pick, and one is sort of a slow to charge, but really powerful, and one is kind of like maybe 2 is the combo power, but then your bombs don't charge very much.
Yeah, one that charges up to a low max power quickly, and then one that stays really weak and then suddenly becomes very, very powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
So by putting that function here, calculate bomb power on the player controller instead of just the game mode, that means that you can have, now you've got a player controller of type slow charge and one that's player controller of type, fast charge, and just do that in blueprints. We wouldn't even, I don't think, need more code for it. You could just subclass them in blueprints and use those.
You could subclass them in blueprints. You could even, if you didn't want to do it that way, you could have a thing where you select a class and then you tell the player controller what character class you are. Well, I really shouldn't use the word class like that. What type?
Avatar?
Yeah,
I think it's the one we
that
went
was,
on.
yes, avatar was yeah. So what avatar you want, and then which couch knight you're using or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you could just tell that to the player. So there are a couple different ways to do that. Neither one's really wrong or right. It's whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. And yeah, here again we've got the score that's protected, the display score that's protected, so nobody can just automatically update it. It's just going to be as these add score functions handle it.
Yeah.
But again, it's fairly lightweight. It's just enough things that we need it to be specific to the player as opposed to handled for the game or for the placement of the tiles. The other one that's fairly light but needed just in terms of scope is the game instance. So do you want to talk about how we ended up with this instead of just trying to put everything in the game mode?
Okay, so the game instance stays around the entire time. So if you made a shipping game, from when you start the game to when you close it, you have one game instance. So it's continuous. It's always there. And this is different from game mode or player control or things like that can be destroyed or created when you end or load a new level. So those things don't really stick around. We decided that for save games, if we had multiple levels in this game, we'd want to know what medals you had in the different levels, and we'd really want to just load this from save once and hold on to it. So that was one thing we put on here, was the save game. So we put that on here so that it would just sort of be in this background object. It's not a lot of data. We don't mind holding on to it all the time, but we just didn't want to reload it constantly. So we put that there, and then if you're at a menu screen, this is another reason we didn't put it in the game mode or in a specific level, is that if you're at a menu screen where you're selecting all your levels, suddenly you need to know this. So it can't be on the game mode because the game mode is specific to the level. It can't be on the player controller because that's created or destroyed every time you're in the level. The menu level itself needs to know everybody's data.
Right, so the game instance is the only really
the game
place.
Instance. Yeah, that's the global place for that kind of information.
Speaking of level, I like this comment. This function will be in the engine in 4.9. The way to get your current level name, because as we wanted to load levels.
Oh yeah, let's bring that function up. Show people how to do that now.
So let's see. It's the game instance. Here we go. Get current level name. Can you see most of that? It's over here is just the remove the prefix string or not. So.
So yeah, this we just sort of found that it was sometimes we just wanted to know what level we were in. We just wanted to know the name of the current level, and there's a way to do it. It's that, but we didn't want to have to keep writing that piece of code. We didn't want to write it in more than one place. Sometimes that's the rule. If there's a piece of code that you write in only one place, like the check that we had way back for whether or not tiles can be selected right now, the check to see if they're falling, if anything's being destroyed, if the game's over, all that. That's only
done. If we put it in one other place where it was going in a function.
That's done in one place. So it being a single long if statement, that's okay. It's only in one place. As soon as you do it in two places, you run into the potential for bugs, because if you realize there's some other special condition here, I'll put in that check, and then you forget to put it in all the other places, you could have some weird bugs that might take you a while to find. So as soon as it's in two places, we do this. This we decided was probably generally useful enough. I think we saw a few forum posts.
Yeah, lots and lots of forum posts, Answer Hub posts. People are like, how do I do this thing? Here's some code block, and
So we ran into it too, and well, we just thought, all right, well, we'll put this in the engine. So that'll be in 4.9, but if you want it right now, here.
Yeah, and it was just, as we hit the big button to reset the level, we're like, okay, just get our level name. what's our level name? What are the chances we typoed our level name? What are that kind of thing? So this was really helpful once we added that in. And let's see. And so we do have the save game, which again, like I said, just really quick, it's got, our points, whether or not it was a score that we set as sort of the default, or whether you beat the score. And then the gold score, the silver score, the bronze score, the maximum win score, and the minimum win score. So the other trick is, as you keep winning, we keep sort of moving the bottom bar up a little bit, but not so much that, say you have a really good game once, you're never going to beat that, and so you're always just going to get sad, collapsing knight avatar.
Yeah, some of the problems that I'd seen in some other games are that when you've played it for a while and you've beaten the official original gold medal score 3 times, it becomes hard to even just to win the level if they require you to get a ranked score to win the level. So we talked about that for a while, and this is what we decided. We decided we would move it up, but only to a certain point.
Right.
And that feels pretty fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very fun game. And as you can see here, we've got sort of the save game slot information, which we've got, documentation on how to set up your own save game. You just basically make this save game object, put whatever variables you want into it, sort of push them in when you want to save them, pull them out when you want to load them, and it's sort of self-contained save game object.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
did we show the structure for that yet? We did, right?
The structure for the saving.
The saving. Oh yeah,
so
yeah. We
gold,
just did
silver,
that.
bronze, and then max and min.
We decided to make those we just named them manually so that when you're in the level editor, they'll show up with these nice names on them. We could have just made it a T array and just said, and then check through and just seen, when you're playing the game, just see if you've beaten any of the scores. But we kind of decided, no, we're gonna hard code this. Like, there are gonna be 3 of them: gold, silver, bronze. Like, that's just how we're gonna do it. And this way, when someone's editing the level, they get to see these nice names instead of an array that they add 3 entries to. We just thought it would be a little smoother, and that we were never going to go back.
Right, it's very clear in terms of, like, we only have the 3 scores. It's never going to be now you have 5 scores to beat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of sort of these universal function type things, we have a Blueprint function library too, which has a couple different things in it, such as getting the local player controller and asking the game mode whether or not the game is active, or pausing the game. So that means that if you're in any Blueprint, you have this ability to check if the game is active or pause the timer.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty similar to U gameplay statics, but it's just for match 3. And we thought this would also be just a useful thing to show, because U gameplay statics is tremendously useful. I use it all the time.
Yeah, it's not just for Blueprints. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I use it from code. I use it from Blueprint. They're useful little utility functions. So if you have some that are specific to your game, and especially if you don't want to modify engine code, if you just want to do your game code, this is a good way to do it.
Right, and then I think we included that over here so that every class knows about the Blueprint function library. And then, of course, because it's a Blueprint function library, every Blueprint automatically knows about it.
Yeah. I think we actually created this from in the editor, didn't we?
Right. So some of these specialized things, you can go right in here, and the mouse will cooperate with me.
There we go.
So new C++ class, and I think even now, if I want to go actually down here and add new C++ class, even right there in the content browser. And so right here you've got, the basics. Do you want to make a character, an actor? This list is
Is it actually on this list, or do we have to expand
No, it's not on this list, but it's just like, there's Blueprint function library, actually, yeah. So
right there.
It's that handy. So you get next, type in a name for your function library, and then you could just create it right here, and it'll load up in Visual Studio. Some of the other ones we did that are sort of the more custom class, rather than the sort of more basic ones, are things like, which you can see when you check show all classes. So for instance, our tiles are actually paper sprite actors, because they did a lot of the paper 2D handling for us. So just a paper
I don't. Do you want the A on it?
Yeah, I think it's just paper sprite. Yeah. So just select paper sprite actor, and I can next and name it another type of tile. Create class and go. And so a lot of things here are exposed to even use save game. So a lot of the more utility classes or specialized classes, if you still want to create them from here in the editor, which comes with things like the helpful template code of automatically ticking, or here's the constructor, that kind of thing. You can do that from right here in the editor.
Yeah, it just makes it a lot easier. even though I know how to do it in C++ and I could just add the files, I still very often do it here just because it's a convenient interface.
Right, and one of the things, this menu has actually gotten a lot of work. You can go ahead and say if it's going to be a public class or a private class. You can go ahead and sort them from here. You know, if you wanted the like match 3 specific code and then like all of your menu code in some other folder structure, you could totally do that. We only have, I think, 5 or 6 classes, so we didn't start sorting them, but at some point soon we probably will.
In other projects, I'll sometimes do this. Like if I'm making a game with moving platforms or something like that, I might have a world geometry folder that just, you know, so that all the code for moving pieces of the world are sort of kept away, and it's easier for me to manage things. So you can kind of, you know, or maybe monsters would be its own little folder.
Yeah, or
stuff
something with
like
AI,
that.
things like that, in their own little buckets. So, but it's right there. Just name your new paper sprite actor. Pretty easy. Some of the other things we had to do, the additional module thing. So right here, like I said, we included our blueprint function library, but there was something else that we had to do, I think even before the very first piece of code we changed, which was to add some modules to the build file. So we knew that we were going to use paper 2D because we wanted to play with the tiles, and we also have the UMG that we wanted to make available. So we had to uncomment the line about Slate UI, and then up here we added paper 2D and UMG, and then that meant that we could use all the functionality specific to paper 2D and UMG right away.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to be able to pull in those kind of modules, and that you don't have to have those modules included if you're not using them. So it helps to keep your build size a little more reasonable.
Right, and if you notice, like speaking of build size and compile times and things, like our match 3 file, the only thing that's universally included is our function library. Everything else we just included as we used it, so that if we changed things, it didn't necessarily affect all the files at once.
Yeah, it's preferable to include, this is just sort of a thing, I guess we'll just say, it's preferable to include H files only from the CPP files where they're used if you need them. If the H file really needs it, then go ahead and include it in the H file. But generally speaking, you want to minimize including H files because every time you modify that H file, everything that includes it needs to be recompiled. This is just how C++ compilers, this is just how it works. It's not specific to Unreal, but it's just a good way to keep your compile times shorter and therefore you iterate faster.
Let's see. Oh, we were talking about the selection. We were going to talk about how the input was set up, right? So the tile is what originally starts handling the input. It says, hey, if tile is, actually, do you want to go over the unclicked?
Oh, sure, yes. Right, so when a tile is first spawned, we hook up input to it, and touch and mouse input are insanely easy to hook up in this engine. I mean, I work here, so I have to say that, but no, it really is, though.
It's 2 lines. I think it's okay.
It's 2 lines for 2 different types of input.
Right.
So we have the mouse click hooked up, and we have the input touch like for a phone. Now the reason that they're different at all is because for the input touch, it's what number finger you're doing this with.
Right, so if we ever did like a swipe multi-touch, we'll detonate all the bombs or something like that. That would be easy to set up here. We just currently say we only have single click or single touch handling.
So what we did down there was we don't really care what, we're not really using multi-touch for this game. That's not really relevant. It's an option, but we don't need it. Right. So that's what we do. When you do it this way, we just call the same piece of code that we would have called had you clicked it on the mouse on PC. And that's it. And now you have a game that you can interact with pretty much exactly the same way on a mobile device as on your your development machine, which means that you don't have to deploy to mobile every 5 minutes, right?
Right. I mean, if we go back over to here, and actually let me check the. So if I hit play, we've actually already set it up to be the screen resolution similar to an iPhone 5, and so right now we could just click and test rather than having to push a device and start testing there. And we also were thinking about at some point trying to, we will test this out on HTML5, give that a whirl, so it's nice to just automatically have the same setup for PC or clicking versus touch up inputs.
Yeah, it's just a very convenient feature that saves a lot of time. And actually, if you look in the advanced play options, there's something sort of interesting in there.
So the mobile preview.
Yeah, all the way at the bottom of the advanced settings,
Mhm.
I believe. So right there, we can set our game's window size, and you notice that our game is pretty vertical and pretty narrow compared to a normal computer screen.
Right.
So that's, of course, that's to imitate the shape of a phone. And we have the,
Right here, we've got some presets that'll help if you're like, okay, I know I'm going to target this device. Let me see how it might look, even if you don't happen to own that device right now or have it handy to test on, that kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, and for a lot of especially independent developers, you might not have 20 different phones sitting at your desk, but you can see, are my images scaling correctly for this phone with a lower resolution screen, or are they gonna, fall off the edge of the screen? How am I doing this? And so yeah, right there you can just do it.
That made me think of another setting that we had to tweak when we first started, because when you start a new project, you can pick if it's,
Oh, right.
sort of scalable or like super shiny, and then you can pick if it's mobile or PC. And if you go to target hardware right here, when we selected mobile, that actually said process clicks as touches. That's a separate option you can toggle on if you want to. You're only going to mobile, so you don't really always want to handle click events. You just want to test click events as touches when you're testing. So.
Yeah, so that's also helpful.
Yes. Oh. Come on, mouse. There we go. So let me see if we've got any questions over here. Ooh, we got some good questions. Okay. Let's see. Can you change it to allow instant matching after falls rather than falling, then refilling the board, then matching again? You match when they first fall. So basically, we would never spawn in a match. We would just, as they're falling, be like, oh, these are right. Let's go ahead and remove them and spawn new ones.
So yes, we can, and actually, I believe that was originally it did that. Before we had all the timed out falling and all the animations, it did effectively just, sometimes you'd get a lot of points. It would just match them instantly. And we actually have code to make sure that there aren't matches in tiles that are spawned. That's how, when we set up the initial grid, anytime you press play, you get no points just for starting the game.
Right.
And you can see there are no 3s in there. It's all 2s is the most you're going to get. So we do have a piece of code that makes sure that each tile that we spawn would not complete a match. So yes, you could just reuse that code when you go to spawn new tiles to make sure that there aren't matches, or you could check and not do the falling animation, which is actually, we had to change it to do what it does now.
Right.
From that. That was its original state.
And the other thing is, once they start falling in, let me complete a match so you can kind of see. And also, this will answer, you can match more than 3 at once. We got 4 there. That was another question.
Yep.
Oh, here's 5. Let me do that real quick. As they are falling in, they know where they're supposed to be. And so if you wanted to compare as they're falling, oh, these are supposed to land together, but they're going to match, go ahead and remove them. So that would be possible if you just changed the order that those were called in.
Yep.
So, instant matching, yes. I don't see strike there, but that's okay.
All right. No,
but yeah,
italicized. That's fine.
So there's our button, and when we click the big yay, beat the game button, it will call restart.
For that match 3, do we want to look at the code for that?
For the larger
briefly?
groups? Yeah.
I had said earlier that the find neighbors code was pretty core to the game, to the concept of match 3. So we take a minute to look at that.
So find neighbors, that's in the grid.
That's in the grid. All right.
And I like that it alphabetizes them for us over
yeah,
there.
that's very helpful. Okay, so let's just scroll down a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a couple of arguments here, right?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that we put in here, like must match ID. We set that to false for bombs, so that you can because the bomb doesn't care. Every tile that is in range of a bomb is good enough. But for a regular swap, you have to be the same type of tile in order for it to count as a match. And then run length. So run length is basically how many tiles in a row you need for it to count. So for match 3, that's 3. For match 4, that's 4. Yeah. So okay. So what we do here is we check. You'll see these loops are sort of hard coded to 0 and 1 for the horizontal, and the direction is -1 or +1. Those are hard-coded because they are inherently, that's basically true or false, or true, false, or done. And direction, same thing. It's right or left or up or down. It's a positive or negative.
Right, the index is incrementing or decrementing,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
What I'm trying to say is it's not something you would ever tweak for your game because it's an inherent fact of being in 2 dimensions and on a grid. But you can see what we do right here is we basically look at all the tiles that are next to you, and we keep track of a match that's in progress as we're matching tiles as we go along. And then once we get to the bottom of that loop, you can see if you've made enough to match or if you didn't request a match at all because it was a bomb.
Right.
And if so, if you have enough, then we keep track of it. And at the end of this, that's going to be a valid move. And if not, if we were looking for a match and we didn't have a long enough match to count, then we dump it.
But if you have more, it's definitely totally fine.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, there's nowhere in here that we actually insist that it's the number 3. We always, if we scroll back a little bit, I think you can see.
It's like if it's greater than the minimum run length.
There we go. Yep. If it's, So we check it against a variable that, or a parameter that you pass in. And that's how we're able to say, match 3, match 4, match 5. So basically, if you have match 3, it'll take 3 minus 1. It'll check 2 to the right, 2 to the left, and that can give you a run of up to 5 tiles in one direction.
Right, and it's not like you're really missing anything at that point, because if you had, say you checked 3 to the left, if you had 3 that matched to the left, they would have already matched and comboed out anyway. So you only need to check sort of your run length -1 in any direction.
Yep.
That's the most that could be next to each other and still work.
Yep. So
yes.
Yes.
If there are plans on giving feedback on pressure, we do want to do some sort of like either a swipe or some other multi-touch thing. We just haven't figured out the right thing to hook that up to yet. Do we want to have, if you swipe with all the bombs, will it do something? Or we could definitely take a look at, other mobile specific inputs.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to find a way to then come up with a corollary for the PC version for if we did HTML5, like drawing something with the cursor, or right click or something like that.
Yeah, we might do something like that. I hadn't thought of pressure specifically, but we do intend to do something along those lines at some
Just
point.
some more advanced, I guess, mobile input, more different things we could do there. We could talk about when we handle the save game objects, right? So there's...
I'm not sure. I'm not exact. That question seems like it's talking about saving like in the middle of a level in progress, like just freeze frame and stay right there. And of course, if you turn your phone off and then turn it back on, it will pause the game, and that all works. But save games in this are as you saw earlier, it's the high scores on a given level. It's not the current board configuration of a level. Now that said, you could do that.
Right, if you wanted to save out, put that array on your save game object and push that every move, like every time you check if the game's unwinnable or not, that kind of thing.
Yeah. When you go to save, you could, for example, the save game could have a T array of ints that just holds tile types, and then you could compress that down and save just the current state of the board, and then when someone reloads a save game, if you wanted to do this, you could just reload the board like that. We don't do that, but you could.
Right. I mean, right now we see when you begin play, it'll go to the game instance and find the save game for the level with some things. If it doesn't exist, take what we claim are the defaults for the game mode and put them into the save game. And then when you restart, it'll do the same thing of loading the game. And then here on Game Over, that's when it pushes the new scores for bronze, silver, and gold if they did change.
Mm-hmm.
So here we can see, move the bronze to, or silver to bronze.
Is this
gold
where
to
we're
silver.
actually scoring, or is this?
This is the Game Over code.
Okay.
So it's like, now that we're done with the game, let's see if you beat the final score. Because if you do it during gameplay, you end up with the whole...
We did.
We did. Yes, as we figured out, you save, this score is awesome. Okay, that's bronze. Now the next good score you get will be silver. It just ends up not handling very well.
Yeah, you just sort of dominate the entire metal board as soon as you start climbing it. So
yeah,
right. So we only register your score at the end. But yeah, I mean, right there we save that, and
then here we update the save. So.
And if we go to load the game and we don't find a level, the level itself has the initial defaults. I think you just mentioned this.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get that. Can we get that code on screen for a second?
The game mode default, or is it the level? Let's see, where's that at?
I forget if it's in the grid or not. Yeah, here we go. If we, oh wait, this is begin?
Oh,
yeah.
here, I think I know where it is.
Do we put it in grid or did we put it in the game mode?
It's the. I don't know.
Let's try the game mode again. I think it might have been in there. Okay. Oh,
Fine,
wait, yeah, it's right there.
For the game instance, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So right there, if we don't find what we're looking for, we just take it right out of the game.
Yeah.
Right out of the level.
So yeah, it just depends on when you want to pull and push information from the save. We just wanted only to store high scores, but if you wanted to store number of bombs, or like you say you made a purchase or something and you're like, okay, I need to record that I've made this purchase so that if for some reason the game crashes, we know about it and can come back to it later, that kind of thing. Or like you close it.
Yeah, that's really global. But yeah, so right there you can also see that we basically, if you get what would have been the bronze score initially, you always at least win the level. We have some code to do that right there.
Yeah. And so I think, oh, here we go, 3D cube version. I think this actually could work pretty well for like a Rubik's Cube or Tetris, because it's just checking to see if the types, if you don't care if the tile types match, you just care that they're all filled in. So you have like sort of a null space that gets swapped in and out. Then you could do similar checks for, say, Tetris or Rubik's Cubes, anything where you want to look in a row or a column.
And to answer a different part of this question, so we nobody knows what
sorry.
question we're answering. So the question is, someone was talking about making a game where you have a cube and each surface has a game on its face. So we might have, a cube where each face is a match 3, or maybe one face is Tetris is mentioned here, or something like that. So yes, you could, because each grid maintains its own kind of game. So you could even have different games on different faces of the cube if you wanted to.
And this one's match 3, and this one's match 4, and this one's match 2, and just keeps going.
This one just is points. And then your overall game mode would have to know that it's playing the cube game, where it has 6 different grids, and each grid calls back to it telling it about score events, and it has to know how to manage those and when to switch you to a different face. I mean, that's a complex game that you're talking about making, but you absolutely could do this because we separated out the grid from the overall game mode, and even further than that, we separated out the individual tiles. So yes, you could do that. But that's mostly a question of if you know you're going to do this in advance, you can plan out to do this. We happen to plan out well enough for general purpose games because we thought of the head-to-head game that ours is flexible enough to do this. But if you know in advance, it would be even more assured that you could plan this properly.
Great. So I think that was most of the stuff we wanted to cover in sort of the overview. We definitely are going to be, posting the project as it gets more fleshed out. We're going to come back and talk about, I think, timers at some point, because they are all over the place in here when you fall and swap and respawn. And then I think at some point we're going to come back and talk about like, the art path, all of that. So there will definitely be more match 3 in the future. Do you have any other last minute go forth and code things?
No, not really. I just, from just a software engineering perspective, I want to reemphasize that last point about, the fact that we can do this on a 6-sided cube if we really wanted to. We didn't plan the entire game like the old waterfall method where you plan everything and then you do everything. But we did a couple of miniature waterfalls, and we kind of looked ahead a little bit. We planned a little bit and did a little bit, and we kind of had a general view of where we were going to go with it, with the flexibility to change some of our decisions as we were going. And designing it that way really helps. You have a good flexible engine here that will support pretty much whatever you do, including late editions of multiplayer. But generally, if you plan in little pieces and don't make things too hard-coded, you can pretty much get where you're trying to go. Just keep iterating and keep building those little pieces one at a time.
Yeah, I think we started with the grid, and we're like, okay, now it lays out the tiles. Now let's make the tiles move, and then repeat. So, hope you guys had a good time, and see you next Match 3 stream.